us make space for a new breath, a new healing, a new possibility to take root. Let us make space for courage, forged in the fire of our coming together and felt in the spirit that comes alive. We believe still that a new world is possible. We believe still that a new world is possible. We are creating it already, here and now.
Good morning. And welcome to services at First Parish Church of Groton. My name is Donna Nowak, and I'm so happy to welcome everyone back to our second Sunday in the sanctuary. It's so good to have this room filled with people. We especially welcome children and the voices and the noise of children. It's the sound of life, and we have been without it for too long. So parents, please stop worrying right now. We are a community seeking to deepen spiritually, to take care of one another, and to be a blessing to the world. Unitarian Universalism is indeed a faith for all. So bring all who you are, all your beliefs, identities, abilities, challenges, and gifts. Bring all of what you've been and all of what you've done. There's room here and spacious grace for all. Our congregation welcomes and includes a wide diversity of beliefs. I invite you to freely translate the language you hear in today's service. If you're visiting us for the first time today, whether here in person or online, please know how delighted we are that you found us. And if you'd like more information, email welcome@uugroton.org. And we'll be glad to get you connected. I have a few announcements. We will continue with our virtual church gathering on Zoom at 7 p.m. on Sunday evenings. Please email, again, welcome@uugroton.org for the Zoom link or check your Friday NNO email. NNO means news, needs, and opportunities. And if you'd like to receive that email, again, welcome@uugroton.org, or you can contact the church office. Today's service will also be posted on our YouTube channel by 7 p.m. Today, we invite children of all ages to join religious education with Cynthia and friends in the vestry, which is the big room right below us. And after the story, the kids, youth, and volunteers will go out the door by the high public and down the big stairs. Grown-ups, you're always welcome to go downstairs with your child. And youth, we have a youth space for you on the stage side of the vestry. Thanks also to Lisa Mortino, our cantor this morning, and to Melissa Wood, who's on tech. Our Director of Religious Education, Liz Davis-Chapin, has been here for 12 years, and her last day with us is March 31st. There are cards to make as well as the photo of the church to sign on that table under the high pulpit. Please stop by after the service to write a goodbye note for Liz. There is no coffee hour yet, but Aaliyah and I would love to greet you after the service outside the front door. All are welcome to the weekly Black Lives Matter Vigil at 11:30 a.m. right in front of the church, Common on Main Street. There are 2 upcoming memorial services for beloved members of our community. Wendy Frank's life will be celebrated here next Saturday, April 2nd at 10:30 a.m. Shirley Mann's life will be celebrated here the following Saturday, April the 9th at 11 a.m. It will also be possible to attend Shirley's service via Zoom link, and that will be in the weekly email, which is the NNO. Welcome to uugroton.org church office. It's our responsibility and also our joy to celebrate the lives of our people and to offer support to their families. So everyone is not just welcome, but encouraged to attend these services. We have learned through the pandemic that our sanctuary is not confined to this room or to any place at all. Sanctuary is what we create together. Wherever and whenever you're joining us, whether you're here in the sanctuary this morning or virtually, please come in and rest a while. Receive hope and strength. You are so welcome here. Now, let's stand and take a moment to greet each other. If you'd rather not shake hands, just bow and wave to greet those around.
Several of you told me last week that you missed our pandemic tradition of calling ourselves into worship with 3 bells that had helped you to settle. So I will call you into worship now. I invite you into this time of sanctuary, this place where healing can happen and where we re-root ourselves in courage. I ask you to remember that you are held in love, you are seen and known by the love which holds us all in tenderness and asks us to do the same for ourselves and for one another. So I will ring the meditation bell as has become our tradition 3 times. Invite you to take 3 good, deep breaths. This first one is for you. And the second one is for all of the ones you love. And the third is for our beautiful, struggling world. Our opening hymn is Down to the River to Pray. And I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to hum or dance or sway as Lisa sings for us. So please rise.
As I went down in the river to pray, studying about the good way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, sisters, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down to the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about the good old way, and who shall wear the robe and crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, brothers, let's go down, come on down. Oh, brothers, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about the good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown of the Lord, show me the way. Oh, siblings, let's go down, come on down. Oh, sisters, let's go down in the river to pray. As I went down in the river to pray, studying about the good old way, and who shall wear the starry crown, good Lord, show me the way. Oh, neighbors, let's go down, come on down. Oh, neighbors, let's go down in the river to pray.
Thank you, Lisa. That's one of my favorites. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our UU faith. It was created during World War II for the UU Service Committee, whose members were involved in getting Jews and other persecuted groups out of Europe. It is a symbol of hope and resilience, of resistance to oppression and hatred. Today, we light the chalice as a gathered community once again. Barbara Rich will light the chalice today.
Good morning. So I think it was Mark Twain who said, it's not what we don't know that gets us into trouble. It's what we know for sure, it just ain't so. So I'm lighting the chalice this morning for all of us, for what we know, what we don't know. The world is on fire. High gas prices, high bread prices, war. Headlines and data scream at us, do something. We feel helpless. So balancing racial justice, protest marches, GoFundMe. I sit near the bird feeders and listen. Downy woodpeckers collaborating, working it out with the robins. I go to the sand dunes to watch the seagulls, feisty birds in charge of the beach. I look up at a hawk circling overhead, lazy and confident. I go to the pond to hear the singing swans, ducks, geese, oblivious of me, negotiating their territory without terror. Who can afford to spend time like this? A friend asks me. Who can't? I reply.
This congregation has been singing Spirit of Life for many years. Today, we don't have to remember the words in Spanish or in English because it's our pandemic job to hum. So let go of the words and just feel them instead as you remain seated here along with Lisa, or just listen.
Last week, we started lighting a special peace candle for the people of Ukraine and for all the other people around the world who live in the midst of war and violence. Meredith Hill will light the peace candle today, and then Lisa will sing the response, "This is my song." And let's take this time to pray for the peace and the safety and freedom for all people.
These words are by the poet Groton. I held an atlas in my lap, ran my fingers across the whole world, and whispered, "Where does it hurt?" It answered, "Everywhere, everywhere, everywhere." We light this peace candle for the hurting of the world.
A song of peace.
you, Lisa. It is so good to have a little bit of dancing in the sanctuary. And maybe Amelia won't be dancing alone, and some of you might like to join her. So I want to talk to the children for a little bit and to the children inside all of us. First, let's say our words for gathering. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that feel, and hands ready to help. Hearts that love. They feel too. Hearts that love and hands ready to help. So, last week I asked you to get down on the ground and put your ear to it and listen to hear if you heard any green humming of spring. Did any of you have a chance to listen to the ground? And if you did, yes, Don, what did you hear? Low humming. Some low, quiet, green is coming, humming. Wonderful. So today's story is called Bird Song by Julie Flett. And I'll ask Cynthia to bring it downstairs with the children so that you can look at the beautiful pictures, Bird Song. But I'm going to tell you the story now, and you can imagine in your mind a little girl with long black hair and medium brown skin who is a member of the Nehiawak people, which is also sometimes called the Cree people, who have lived in North America for a very long time and are still here. Her name is Katharina, and she's the one who's telling the story. And because the pictures tell an important part of the story, I'm going to add some words to Julie Flett's words to tell that part. So imagine it is spring, a mucky spring morning, as we pack up the last of our belongings and leave our little home in the city by the sea. I'm going to miss my friends, my cousins, my aunties and uncles. I'm going to miss my bedroom window and the tree outside. Goodbye, tree friend, I whisper. Does anybody here have a tree friend? I know the answer is yes. We drive through the country and over the mountains, alongside rivers and fields of horses. We stop to see a lone coyote crossing the road and watch a flock of geese fly over our heads. Our new home sits on a hill overlooking a field, and past it another house, and in that house lives our new neighbor, an older woman named Agnes. The field between our houses is covered in snowdrops. Our new home has 2 trees outside and birds in those trees whose names I don't yet know, and creaky stairs inside. And my new room has a shelf for books and pictures and a desk for drawing. I love drawing everything around me, especially trees and birds. Does anybody here love drawing, especially trees and birds? Yes, a lot of people. But I don't feel like drawing now. My hands are cold. My mom and I bundle up together under the covers in our new home in the country far from the sea. Now it is summer, and our new home hums with peeps and whistles and chirps, and I've started to get to know the birds who visit the 2 trees and make these sounds. They're becoming my friends, but I don't have any human friends yet, and I still don't feel like drawing. I watch Agnes, our neighbor, in her yard. My mom says, "Why don't you visit her?" I am shy, but I am also lonely. So I nod okay. I take our dog Oho with me. Oho means owl in Cree, because owls are wise and I love birds. "Hello, Agnes," I say. "You must be Katharina." "Woof," Oho barks. "Your mom has told me all about you, and she says you love to draw. I love to make things out of clay. Agnes shows us around her yard where there are berries and flowers and so many of her clay things, and they look like branches and birds and flowers. I love them, especially the little clay birds. Visit me again, Agnes says. I smile. I can't wait to go home and start drawing. Now it is fall. I do visit Agnes again and again and again. Agnes digs in her garden and I help her by gathering extra leaves to mix into the soil which the worms love. It is getting cold and windy and creaky, and Agnes says she is getting creaky too. Would you like to see what I'm working on inside? Yes. Agnes is working on a pot that's round and bright, and she tells me all about waxing and waning moons, and I tell her all about the pre-seasons, and that the month we're in now is called the month of the migrating moon. Here comes the moon, and there go the geese. And now it is winter. It is Oho's first snow, and we sled until my snowsuit is soggy, and Oho is covered in tiny ice balls that stick to his fur. After we warm up, I help Mom finish making salmon stew to share with Agnes. Agnes hasn't been out as much, and she needs a little help. She likes the stew, and her daughter, who has come to stay, likes it too. Agnes sends me home with a cup full of bulbs, snowdrop bulbs to plant in the field between our houses in the fall, and they look like tiny moons. They give me more ideas for pictures, and so do the cardinals, who are bright red in the bare branches against the snow, and my fingers itch in my mittens to draw, and it is spring again. And Agnes has grown weaker over the winter. Still from her bed, we can hear the spring birds singing and the tickle of branches against her window, and we listen together. The snowdrops are peeking out, and I wish Agnes could see them, and I really wish she could see the birds, and I have an idea. I run home. I gather up all my drawings, and Agnes's daughter meets me at the door with 2 ladders. Does anyone know what she's going to do? We put up the pictures all over her bedroom walls, and it is like her room is full of birds soaring all the way up to the ceiling. And when we're done, Agnes says it is like a poem for her heart. And then Agnes and I sit and talk about making things, and then we sit quiet and listen to the birds until it is time to say goodbye. I leave with an ache in my heart, but I'm so glad to know my friend, Agnes. And later that night, the frog moon is full, and Mom and I bundle up together in our home, and my hands feel warm, and I think about my friend until I fall asleep. The end. So now we will hum the children and youth and teachers to religious education with thanks to those grown-ups who are helping today. So Cynthia, why don't you come on up here, and children and youth can gather with Cynthia and go right out that door.
May your mind be open to learning. May your lips bring truth into the world. May your heart know love and your hands to the work of justice as you go your way in peace. As you go your way in peace.
So we are going to begin in prayer today with some prayer. And And this is a song called Sanctuary, and it is sung at Sanctuary Boston, which is UU community, especially for young adults, and has been really important to some of the youth and young adults in our congregation.
Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew. Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving, we are a living sanctuary anew.
So may the spirit of prayer be upon this sacred old house. Gretchen Haley writes, "For this hour, we gather to surrender to the mystery, to release ourselves from the needing to know, the urgency of having it all figured out. We release ourselves from the burden of believing we either have all the control or none of it. Here in our song and our silence, our stories and our sharing, we make space for a new breath, a new healing, a new possibility to take root. We believe still that a new world is possible. We are creating it here and now. So this morning we hold in our loving prayers Wendy's husband Ray, and Leah and Jonas and Kelsey, and all of Wendy's friends and family. We send prayers of healing to Chuck, to Megan and Tommy, and to Chris's brother Peter, who is nearing the end of his life, for his wife Susan and for comfort and ease. We pray for Natalie recovering from a broken knee, for a church family going through a hard passage with their teenagers, and another church family recovering from COVID. And we continue to pray for the people of Ukraine and for all who are living through violence and war, and we pray for refugees everywhere. And this week, let us share Liz's joy at the marriage of her son Ryan. As the earth in our part of the world slowly begins to hum green, may we feel the green parts of ourselves wake up, and may we believe that the trees will remember to make leaves, and the sun will remember to shine warm. May we touch here together our gratitude and our hope. May we hold hands here together against despair and cynicism. And may we give thanks for the humor and strength and gladness that is so present in this community. And may we feel the privilege and the joy of being alive for all of it. And may we always find the path that returns us to the sanctuary of our hearts, the sanctuary of one another, the sanctuary where we are loved just as we are. So let's rest a moment and quiet together and listen to the sounds of the morning and pray the prayers of our own hearts.
Our generosity sustains this congregation. Our generosity allows us to continue to live out our mission to deepen spiritually, to take care of each other, and to be a blessing to this world. We couldn't do it without all of us. At the very same time, in this community, our belonging will never be measured by our ability to contribute financially. If you're able, donations in any amount are welcome, needed, and so much appreciated. If you're visiting us for the first time today, let this service be our gift to you, and let the boxes pass you by. The morning offering will be given and gratefully received.
So we begin with a confession. I know nothing about birds. I know what hawks are, because two of our beloved members, Georges and Michael, who sat right over there, for many years told us that after they died, they would return as hawks. They said it so matter-of-factly that we all just accepted it. Whether or not we actually believe in reincarnation didn't really matter. And for years now, at least one hawk spends a lot of time at the top of the huge, shaggy pine tree behind the meeting house. And every time someone in our community sees it elegantly gliding and wheeling over the church or off toward Gibbet Hill, that person usually says very casually, "Oh, there's Georges or Michael." I don't know anything about hawks, but I loved Georges and Michael, so I pay attention when I see them. And when I went to California and I saw the red-tailed hawks soaring over golden, rolling hills, I felt I understood Michael, who had spent much of his life in that landscape in a way I hadn't before. I know robins and cardinals, though I didn't know that only the male cardinals are that beautiful, bright crimson color until I looked it up. And I know pigeons. But otherwise, Alan and I often say to each other when we go out on walks, "Look, there's a brown bird." Or there's a little white bird. Or there's a grayish-black bird with some red on its wings. Early in the pandemic, we started to go for walks at the Great Meadows in Concord, which is a really special place. And we try to go there every couple of months because the place changes so dramatically from season to season, and it is beautiful in every season. And Great Meadows is a apparently a big bird watcher's place, and there's a chalkboard on the sign at the entrance where someone, I don't know who, writes the date every day, and people write down the names of all of the birds they've seen that day. Tufted titmice and black-capped chickadees and common grackles, and I am always utterly amazed that people know these names and the birds that belong to these names. And I further confess that Alan and I always find a tiny empty spot on the chalkboard and write in some kind of bird. I like to think that it's there for the people like us, the people who love that place, and we appreciate its beauty, but we don't have a lot of information. And my third confession is this: I'm not actually planning to learn the names and descriptions and habits of birds. I don't have any room in my brain for this information, though I sometimes feel a little bad about it. So I was completely delighted to learn that the brilliant ornithologist and naturalist, Dr. Drew Lanham, who undoubtedly knows as much or more about birds than anyone in the entire world, holds on to the names his grandmother taught him as a child growing up in Edgefield, South Carolina. He, who knows every single classification and all the details and Latin designations, talks about snowbirds and rain crows and redbirds. In his beautiful conversation with Krista Tippett for the On Being Project, he actually calls wrens little brown birds. I felt so seen. He reminds Krista that you don't have to know scientific names or classifications of things that scientists came up with in order to appreciate the beauty of those things, or even to know them deeply. You just have to pay attention and care. Dr. Lanham is the author of a truly stunning book called The Home Place: Memoirs of a Colored Man's Love Affair with Nature. And he's also the poet laureate of Edgefield, where he still lives. He writes about his life growing up there. He writes about the migratory patterns of birds. He writes about the land upon which generations of his family labored, going back to times of enslavement. He writes about the bitter legacy of slavery and the beauty and strength and wisdom of his family and the peace he finds in nature. He writes about American history and the journey of people through time, the journey of birds through geography. He calls us fledged and fledglings. He writes in ways that are like poems for the heart. He told Krista Tippett, when I talk about ornithology and what my grandmother taught me, I realize that the way I teach people about birds is born in part of her telling me about them in a different way. And I want people to see birds not just as things to count or list. That's an important aspect, but I want them to see the stories in these birds and to be able to travel back through time and understand what time has exacted on people and the land and the birds themselves, and then also to understand where we are now. because that is how we will care to protect those birds. And part of what Krista Tippett and Dr. Lanham talked about was joy, and how we find moments of joy in our daily lives, and how much those moments of daily joy matter, especially in the face of hardship and injustice. And Dr. Lanham told Krista how since he couldn't do his usual travel and research following bird migrations around the world during the pandemic time, instead he spent hours each day sitting in an Adirondack chair, watching the seasons come and go in his backyard, and watching the birds come and go with each season. He got to know the cardinals and the grosbeaks. He writes, watching a bird sit in the last shafts of sunlight, watching the setting sun blaze through that bird to me, gave me this appreciation again for the things that we pass by. That common is a word that dismisses what we should be paying attention to. He said, for me, the songs of birds are important. They signal the beginning of the day and the end of it, and what birds are doing in their lives and carrying on. And I think joy must be something you can hold in your heart. You can protect joy in a way that when all of those things on this rough-trod trail around you are threatening you, you can pull out that joy at quiet moments and experience it again. That's the bird flying through the yard. That's the cardinal. That's the song. That's the memory of something good. I have to find these moments daily. And it's a struggle sometimes to endure all this stuff. I've had those days where nothing is going right. It seems like there's more coming that's going to go wrong. But in that moment, I think of the little brown bird. In that moment, I'm not thinking about anything else, and that's joy to me. There is so much broken in this world that I think it can feel wrong to talk about joy. How do we talk about joy when bombs are falling in Ukraine and there's so much suffering? But joy is how we remember why it all matters. Joy is how we feed our compassion. It's how we fire our yearning to make the world better and to act with kindness and care. And joy is how we remember our worth, our value, our right even, not just to exist, but to thrive. Joy is urgent, especially for those who have been told they are not entitled to it. And in this way, joy and justice are not unrelated. As Krista Tippett puts it, we have to know what we love. We have to know what we love in order to have resilience and to find the strength to rebuild and remake what needs to be rebuilt and remade. Where is your joy? Not the huge, monumental joys. That's not what I'm asking about. Where is your small, daily joy? The joy that feeds you, the joy that sustains you. Do you know what it is? And do you give yourself permission and time to pay attention to these little joys, to settle into them, to revel in them? What is your common joy? Pay attention this week and try to remember that your joy matters. As Barbara Rich wrote for us, I sit near the bird feeders and listen. Downy woodpeckers collaborating, working it out with robins. I go to the sand dunes to watch the seagulls, feisty birds in charge of the beach. I look up at a hawk circling overhead, lazy and confident. I go to the pond to hear the singing swans, ducks, geese, all oblivious of me, negotiating their territory without terror. Who in the world can afford to spend time like this? Who can't? So our closing hymn is "The Tide is Rising," and Lisa will sing for us, and I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and hum or sway or dance along or all three.
The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. The world is ready, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.
So good. So I will invite you after the benediction to be seated and listen to the posted music and come and light a silent candle of joy or sorrow as you are so moved. Where you put a hand on your heart and with the other reach out and look around at one another's beautiful faces and know that we are connected. We are woven together with strong and sturdy threads of love. Go in peace My friends, you'll be a blessing to this world.